This video will show you how to correctly format a citation in APA style. You should be using APA for your in-text citations as well as on your works cited page of your full sentence outline. When dealing with in-text citations, you're going to need to determine if you are citing a paraphrase statement or a direct quotation. Know that most of the time we prefer paraphrases to direct quotations. In public speaking, however, you would likely choose to use a direct quotation to add credibility to your speech. So, when the person you are quoting is really well known, you might choose to use their exact words to communicate an idea to your audience rather than interpreting that idea via a paraphrase, which is what you'd do if the person you were quoting wasn't really well known. Here are some options for paraphrasing that you might choose to use. There is a citation included at the bottom of the slide that is the article we are using the in-text citations for. So we could put the author's name first in our sentence and say what was found. In this case, you would include the author's last name only and then, in parentheses, the year the article was published. If you were to start the sentence by saying, according to the author of the study, you'd do pretty much the same thing. You'd say, according to Stanger, and then, after typing the author's last name, you would include the year of publication in parentheses. You do the same thing for the third variation on the list, in Stanger's study, and then the year of publication would be included in parentheses. Do know, however, it is completely appropriate to simply write information found from your sources as a declarative statement. When you do that, you still want a citation, but that citation would come at the end of the sentence. In this case, you'd include the author's last name and the year of publication. Specifically, you would want to have an open parentheses followed by the author's last name, followed by a comma, followed by a space, followed by the year, and followed by close parentheses, and then, if the citation is ending the sentence, followed by a final punctuation in the sentence. When using a direct quotation, APA requires that you include the page number where you found the quotation. The screen shows you some of the ways you could format your direct quotations. Note that when a quotation is on one page of text, you use a single lowercase p followed by a period and then a space before you include the page number. When the quote spans 2 or more pages of text, APA asks that you use 2 lowercase p's followed by a period and a space and then the page range on which you can find the quotation. A single p means page and 2 p's means pages. So, through these 2 slides, hopefully you are able to see how you can use APA to craft your in-text citations. Remember, anything that you didn't create needs to be cited. So, if an idea came from another source, give the source credit. Any source that is cited in your speech needs to have an entry on your reference page. On your reference page, you are going to want to include the following when your journal article has a single author. You'll include the last name, then a comma and a space, initial of the first name, and a period and a space. You may include the initial of the author's middle name if it's given in the article. Then another period and a space. Then the year in parentheses, a period, another space. Then you'll have the title of the article. You can see that it's not capitalized or quoted or anything like that. It's just the title of the article, a period, a space, then the title of the journal in italics, then the volume number in italics after a comma from the journal article title, then another comma, and the page number as in XXYY, and then a period. Make sure that you indent from the second line and below, that you capitalize the first letter of every word except for of, in, etc. in the journal title. That's not the case in the article title. You keep only the first word capitalized, but the rest of the words will not be capitalized. The journal title, though, other than of and in, will have every word capitalized in it and in italics. Capitalize only the first letter of the title or the names of the country, people, etc. in the title of that article. So here's an example from a single authored piece, and we can go through the parts here once again. You see the last name Hall, the first name with a capitalization of J, a period, space, a period, a space, the year in parentheses, then a period, a space. Then you see the title of the article, Aligning Darkness with Conspiracy, with a colon, and then a capitalization of the first letter after the colon in the subtitle, The Discursive Effects of African American Interest in Gary Webb's Dark Alliance. Now, Dark Alliance is in quotation marks because that was in the original title of the piece as well. You'll see that the period comes inside those quotation marks. That won't always be the case. You'll have a period sometimes just right after the title of the article, no quotation marks, anything like that. But again, those quotation marks are there because they were originally in the original article title. The Howard Journal of Communications is the journal title or the journal name. It's in italics, then a comma. The volume of the journal is also in italics, 17, a comma. And then the page range, 205 to 222, is not in italics, and you have a period after that. So this is an example of a single authored piece in APA citation style. Here's an example of multiple authors, very similar to the single authored piece, but you can kind of go through and see. Sierra K, Rogan R.G., and Hall J.A. These are three authors. Sierra is the first author. And you see the comma comes after the first full name and the initial of Sierra. Then a space, Rogan, their initials, the comma, and then the ampersand comes before the final author, Hall, J.A., and then 2004. One important note is to make sure that you don't reorganize the author's names. Don't alphabetize them. Don't put them in a different order than is listed in the original journal article. Those authors are in that order for a reason, so make sure that you keep that order correct from the original journal article. Then again, you see the same exact type of formatting for the rest of the citation, the title of the article, the title of the journal, the issue number, and the page numbers as well. Again, this is an example of multiple authors, and the only change there you can see is at the beginning and how those authors are listed in APA style. And just so you're aware, this is what an in-text citation would look like for a journal article with more than one author. Again, you list the author's name followed by a comma and then a space, and then use an ampersand, the and symbol, before the name of the last author. Okay, the second time you cite this source, and this is the important part, you would just list the author's first name and then et al. That's E-T space A-L period. Both lowercase, which means and others. Sometimes your word processor will correct AL and put a capitalization of the letter A instead of having it lowercase. So make sure that you're aware of that as you put et al. In your papers and in your outlines. So remember to go to the online writing lab because this video has shown you how to use APA citation and to cite journal articles. You might be using sources other than journal articles in your speech, and while many of the conventions are the same, a good resource to go to cite each type of source you plan on using is the OWL at Purdue. That's the online writing lab at Purdue. If you Google APA citations, OWL, OWL, Purdue, you'll find everything that you'd need for those types of citations.